Call the meeting to order of the Board of Trustees, Sylvania Township. This is our regular scheduled meeting of April 19th, and the time is 5 p.m.
Call the roll. Mr. Genowine?
Here.
Mr. Mahoney is out of town, I believe, correct? Out of town on business, I think.
I'm not sure.
Absent.
Yeah, well, out of town on business, I'm sure. Mr. Crampel?
Here.
Simca, here.
Okay, would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of April 5th. I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Crampel?
Yes. We have one signature tonight, and it's regarding Olander Park, so I'll call on you, Mr. Craigie.
Well, before we move that, we have no additions or deletions.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Thank you. Erica Burley is the Executive Director of the Olander Park System, and she's going to make a brief presentation on Olander Parks.
Thank you very much for inviting me to come and talk today. One of the reasons I'm here today is we will be on the ballot in November, and it's been a while since we have done any advertising, and I just want to kind of give an update about what the Park District has been up to for the past couple of years. So I've been the director for 2 years now, and actually I've been at the Park District for 15. So I've been pretty familiar with the operations, and we've had a lot of changes in that time. Go ahead and I'll just nod at you, Scott. Just a little bit of background. Sylvania Township Park District, this slide is actually, it's 1958 is when we were formed. Olander Park was opened in 63, and at that time we were known as the Sylvania Township Park District. We were formed as a 1545 Park District, which under the revised code says that we take our funds from property tax levies, so that's how we get our funding. In 2000, we rebranded ourselves because there was a lot of confusion and continues to be confusion about where we fit in the Sylvania community in terms of parks and recs, so we called ourselves the Olander Park System because, of course, our most well-known park is Olander Park. A map of kind of where we have our parks. A lot of people are really, really familiar with Olander because it's kind of centrally located in the community and it's really well visited. Fossil Park, another one, another program park that a lot of people know about because there's really awesome fossils. It got a lot of media attention, and it is known worldwide as a great place to find Devonian age fossils. Sylvan Prairie Park is our largest parcel. Not as well known. There's a bike trail there, playground, parking lot, a sledding hill, and we've been doing a lot of habitat restoration there. But again, one of our lesser known properties, Whetstone Park up in Monroe, Alexis kind of triangle is the first park we owned. That's a 3-acre little city park. We're hoping to work with ProMedica, who just put in their wellness center there, to do some improvements at that site. We have a partnership agreement with the Sylvania School Board for the Southview Oak Savanna behind Southview. That's 7 acres of globally rare habitat right in the heart of Sylvania. And then we also have an agreement with the City of Toledo, and that parcel's not on this map, but it's in the Flanders, Talmadge, Ginger Hill neighborhood, and that site is called the Waterbury Wet Woods, and that's another 7 acres of wooded, it's a wooded lot with some really great spring wildflowers. And then finally, we have a small parcel on Her Road that we just call the Her Road property. We haven't developed that property yet, and the engineers have a large project planned for 10 Mile Creek that includes this property, so we will probably wait until that project is finished and see what the repercussions are from that before we do any development on that. Well, last year revenues, you can see that the bulk of our money, our funding comes from property taxes. We do bring in some money from rental of our community hall and other shelters and front gate, but the bulk of it is from property taxes. Again, the bulk of our expenses go to personnel. We have 7 full-time staff, 2 part-time staff, and we hire between 20 and 25 seasonal staff throughout the summer, and most of those staff are Sylvania residents. So, like most businesses, half of our expenses go to payroll. Go ahead. Something that we've been really successful at is grant writing in the last 15 years. Pretty much all of the property at Sylvan Prairie Park was acquired with matching grants from Clean Ohio, the Clean Ohio Fund, and from grants from ODNR through Land and Water and Nature Works. Those are 2 other granting programs. And that, like I said, that purchased all of Sylvan Prairie for us. We also were able to acquire her road with those funds, and the Clean Ohio Trail Fund helped us put in the Quarry Ridge Bike Trail, which connects Fossil Park and Sylvan Prairie, as well as Pace, that trail that connects Pace Center and Centennial Terrace. And then we used a lot of money, grant monies from Ohio EPA, the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and Nature Works to do restoration projects. So installing prairie, doing stream restoration in particular. And in total, over the last 15 years, that's $2.5 million. So we've been able to take, the community's tax dollars and really been able to leverage that to do some improvements that if we couldn't get grant money for, we wouldn't be able to do it. So that's been really tremendous. We do a lot of programs at Olander. You're probably really familiar with the Halloween hike and the fishing derby. We also have the Easter egg hunt that happens in the spring, and Maple Sugaring Festival takes place in March. We do the summer concert series. It takes place between June and August, every other Wednesday. And we have a large number of smaller programs throughout the year that are advertised in our Pathfinder newsletter, which every household in the Sylvania School District receives. We also have some other programs that we don't run but are hosted at Olander. The Lucky Duck Swim, which is an open water swim. The triathlon, which is both the kids and the adult triathlon, takes place at Olander. And this year we will again be hosting the 24-hour run. And this weekend, the Glass City Marathon will be running through Olander. So, we are utilized by a lot of groups. So programs and operations are big portions of what we do, but natural resource management is another large portion of what we do as a park district. And that includes, as I was talking about before, doing some stream restorations to improve water quality in the community, but also working with the school district on the habitat behind Southview High School, which, as I said before, is an oak savanna, and that's a globally rare habitat. And one of the really cool things about having these properties and doing these projects is that we've been able to partner with both the University of Toledo and Lourdes University in bringing their students out to do restoration projects and volunteer with us, but also to do science. So their classes come out and get data, take it back to their classroom, analyze the data, and then that can inform some of the work that we're doing on our property. So that's been a really great partnership. Go ahead. Universities are just some of the, a few of the partners that we work with. This isn't a complete list, but this is a lot of the groups that we do work with. Harbor brings out some of their clients to work with us in the summer in job training. Partners for Clean Streams, we do a big program, Clean Your Streams, every year with them. We do programs with Land and Water, or the Lucas Soil and Water Conservation District, the Nature Conservancy and Metro Parks, and ODNR and ourselves are really active in conservation in the community. So a lot of partners Any funds from the Halloween hike go to Sylvania Area Family Services. We've been working with the Arts Commission, so a lot of community involvement as a park district, and that's important for us to be able to serve our community to the best of our abilities. Some of the benefits of parks to communities just in general. The study that was in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, children who were closer to parklands had better memory development and less inattentiveness than other children. So when you think about parks, you think about, going and sitting in the sunshine and having a picnic or playing on the playground. But having parklands in your community improves your community in ways you don't necessarily think about. This is a really great example. Kids do better in school if they have good parks in their neighborhood or on their way to school or, just close by. Parks are great for property values. If you live close to a park, your house is worth more money. And that then means more money for the community in terms of property taxes. So good parks mean more revenue for the community as a whole. And then, of course, healthcare savings for folks who exercise. If you live close to a park, you're a little more likely to go for a walk, you're more likely to go for a run or ride your bike, and that adds up to healthcare savings up to $2,000 annually for adults. So those are some really, number of ways that we serve the community with our facilities. Some of the less concrete ways, by having open space and doing stream restorations, we help with stormwater management, so reduction in flooding and some of those other issues that come with our, bigger rain events, things like that. Because we have open space with trees and prairie, we're providing, we're helping provide cleaner air and water, because those prairies also help with filtration of the water when it rains. A community with great parks is attractive to business owners as well as people who might want to live here. So schools and parks are like the two big things that people look at when they want to live in a community. And tourism, especially as it pertains to Fossil Park, as I said, it's a globally known site. We get calls from people traveling from all over the country to find out about it, when it's open, that kind of stuff. So people come to Fossil Park from all over the place, and probably we get more visitors from away from Sylvania than we do from in Sylvania. And those people are going to Mayberry Square and getting ice cream or having lunch at JoJo's and then going downtown and spending money. So that's a really important aspect of what parks can bring to the community as well. So our current levy is a 0.5 mil levy, and that brings in about $700,000 annually for us. And that levy was passed in 2002. We renewed that 2 more times. So we've been at that level, $700,000 for the past 15 years. In that time, as I said, we've added 5 miles of trails, 230 additional park acres. We have solar-powered restrooms at Fossil Park. We have 6 new major annual programs. We've been able to bring in $2.5 million in grants, and we've reorganized our staff, so we have actually 2 less full-time staff than we did 10 years ago, and we replaced those with 2 part-time staff and 6 seasonal staff. So, and those 6 seasonal staff are in the Natural Resources Department, because as we've expanded, Sylvan Prairie in particular, as we've expanded our natural resources needs, we've needed to include staff to manage that process. This fall, in November, we will be asking for a new levy, and that will be 0.8 mil, and that will bring in about $1,093,000. And that's the auditor's most recent estimate. We'll get a better idea of that coming up soon. But some of the things that we really need, we've been really great about using the money that we've been getting to maintain what we have, but there's certainly some of our facilities that need some updates. And for instance, Sylvan Prairie has no restroom at all. So our biggest property has porta potties, and that's really a problem. The restrooms at Olander Park over by the swim area, if you've been in those lately, you know they probably could use some updating. As I said, Sylvan Prairie Park has very little infrastructure at all beyond the parking lot and the playground, so we really need to add some things to that. Fossil Park, we've been talking about a playground at Fossil Park forever, ever since it was, opened. We have land there for that, so it's not, we won't have to acquire new land, but we do, it would be great to have a playground, especially for those school groups that come and visit us and they're splitting their group up between lunch and Fossil Park, then they have something for that group, their other groups to do. Our maintenance building is in okay shape. It needs a new roof. We've been kind of patching it as much as possible, but it doesn't really hold everything we need it to anymore. As our properties management has expanded, that means more equipment, and that garage is not really doing it anymore. So that's something that we're looking at. And of course, just general operations. Because we've acquired so much more property, we have higher operating costs, and so again, we will be looking for more funds in that direction. So that's all I have. We have a really great website, was launched last winter. We have a Facebook page that's really active, and we put all of our events up there, and my contact information is up there if you have any questions. We do have a levy campaign started if you're interested in joining that campaign. Neil Mahoney is one of our chairmen, so as well as Mark Lukey and Bonnie Hunter. So feel free to contact them if you're interested in helping out with that campaign. And that's all I have to say. Do you have any questions?
With your budget, do you guys have operating and capital improvements, or how do you determine how you separate funds like that?
We don't have it separated out as all one general fund. And so, for instance, we're repaving Olander Park this year. And so we've been putting money aside the past 2 years so that we could save up enough to do that.
How do you guys determine the value of property when you purchase it? As you said, you purchased 230 acres recently.
That's correct.
I've gotten a lot of complaints or comments that it seems that, if you're going to make top dollar on your property, the best person to sell it to is Olander Park. So how do you guys determine what's a fair value? And
that's a really good question. When the property is valued, it has to be valued as open space, which is obviously a lesser value if you're going to value it for residential, right? So if a developer wanted us to sell their property, they would get $30,000, an acre. But if that space is going to be slated for open space, then the value is different. And so property in Sylvania is much more expensive than property that other parks have the opportunity to buy outside of this community. But based on the auditor, every time we buy property, because we do it through grant processes, it has to be audited, and so it is always evaluated by an appraiser, and then that appraisal is approved by the granting agency.
when you purchased the property from Sylvania Schools, you purchased it for the same amount that they had purchased it for, I believe?
I believe that, but I wasn't part of that process.
Because, I mean, one of my concerns was at the time it had been deemed a floodplain. So that
Yes,
should have been
that's correct.
given to us or given to the organization or bought at half of what they paid for it because they were going to build on it.
Right.
So, and the same with, you know, where Sylvan Prairie is. I mean, I know a half dozen developers that I personally know said that they looked at that site for, you know, over and over to do a project and it wouldn't work until the current owner spun it off to Olander Park, and again, he was able to put up things, and, you know, I'm just, it's frustrating when you see that, and, you know, and then you see the rapid expansion of the park system, and now you need more money to operate it, and I think most of the people in the community at the time were saying, it's only going to be a couple years till they tell us they can't maintain this property.
Right.
And again, I'm looking at 4 new parks, and 2 or 3 of them have no access to the public. I mean, Waterbury and the one behind Southview and Her Road, I mean, those aren't parks, those are parcels of land that you're collecting scattered around the community with no real purpose or, you know, and then what really offended a lot of people in our community is when you looked outside of our community to purchase property. I mean, do we have, what sort of guarantees do we have that that isn't going to happen? And And that was very frustrating.
Yeah, well, I understand your concerns, and as you may remember, Mr. Zeitler here is our board chairman and was strongly against purchasing that property outside of the property,
Yeah, because
outside
you
of the
went
district.
broke last year instead of this year, right?
And we did not do
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. General, the best I can tell you is that when we purchase property, we are getting it at the cheapest rate we can in the Sylvania Township District.
Did you offer the school anything but their asking price?
Again, I can't answer the question, I was not
Well,
involved in
Mr.
that
Zeitler can.
process.
Well, I think, wasn't that appraised?
Yeah, we would have, again, since we bought that with Clean Ohio funds, we would have had that appraised, and it was the appraised amount is what we have to, we can't pay any more than the appraised amount if we get it with grant money.
Well, you could pay less.
We could pay less.
Yeah. Well, again, I think a lot of people have confusion over the overlap in services that our Lucas County Metro Parks provide and Olander, and I'm trying to differentiate. I see they're one of your partners, but how does that fit in, and why aren't these parcels more put under them to manage? And they have also a very expansive growth proposal out there as well. And I do find it ironic that you're head of the CIC for the past 2 years. And that goal of that organization is to increase the property tax to this community, yet when you take a parcel out of that parcel's never going to pay property tax. So I think you have a very difficult role in balancing those two acts. And I know, it can add property value, but I don't think anybody would have paid top dollar for a parcel that goes up against a quarry that they still do blasting at. And again, you pay top dollar for that, and...
Well, no, sir, we did not. Again, we paid it at its open space value.
Well, you paid it at a much higher rate than most developers are buying it in this community, and they're willing to pay more because they plan on doing something with it. So I think there lies the concerns is, when it's not coming out of somebody's personal direct checking account, that it tends that, the pricing and things aren't as checked and, gone through that process.
Certainly, and you bring up some very valid points about there being overlap of services with the Metro Parks. I would argue that we are not big enough for the Metro Parks to manage. They are very concerned about having large parcels. The size parcels we have don't count for them, and they really do rely on us to manage the properties we have so that we are filling that void for them. Because they're looking at high-quality habitat. Sylvania Township, I'm sorry to say, does not have that high-quality habitat. So those properties are not going to be highly valued by them. And if it was not for us, you would not have parks in the township because Mesh Parks isn't interested in those properties.
Well, we already have Pacesetter. Now, whether that's a park or whether that's a rec district, those sorts of things. So again, we have 2 or 3 different park systems within our own community.
And I've had this conversation with Mike McMahon several times. Olander is open space and passive recreation. Pacesetter does active recreation. So we serve very different purposes in the community.
Well,
and they're very important. In some areas, one park district manages both those processes. For instance, the city of Bowling Green does open space, natural resources, and recreation, pools and soccer fields. In Sylvania, those 2 functions, which are both very important functions, have been separated into 2 separate agencies.
And I'm assuming we've stopped the IOUs.
I'm sorry?
I'm assuming we've stopped the IOU process at the Olander Park system.
How's that, sir?
Well, I think the last director is gone because of it, and, I'm...
You mean borrowing money?
Yes.
Borrowing money from the... Yes, we have policies in place, actually, based on the audits, because we did an audit immediately after that event. Based on the auditor's recommendations, we have a cash handling policy that is very strict, and that way when we're keeping much better track of those things.
Well, I'm opposed to the increase in the levy. I think you guys have spent a lot of money, and so if you get a grant, you take the money that the taxpayers and switch it over to your operating expenses then? Or, again, without having that clear distinction, I think it gives too much wiggle room. And again, I don't see what sort of benefit that parcel on her road, how big is it? An acre?
It's about 10 acres.
10 acres? Mm-hmm. And what do we plan on doing with that?
The original plan for that parcel was to be kind of a way station for the bike trail that was planned to follow 10 Mile Creek. That's not going to happen, but we were forward thinking in trying to do that.
Okay.
And to speak to your concerns about grants, again, we are getting those grants so that we can do the improvements to the property that we do have without spending more tax dollar money, right? So
it is tax dollars. Where do you think grant money comes from?
I appreciate
that.
that.
That's kind of the blur line is, oh, well, we're getting this outside, but it's still coming from, people who pay taxes and.
That's correct. So.
I would like, we do have some business items tonight.
Okay.
So if we could, there might be other people that have comments, so.
Does anybody else have any other comments?
I don't want to hold up our meeting too.
Thank you very much for your questions, Mr. Gentleman, and I'd be happy to talk to you after the fact
I
about
use the
it.
system, and my kids were very, they were there 2 or 3 days a week when they weren't in school.
Yep.
And so they do a good job. But
Yes.
I think most people were surprised to see how expansive Olander Park has gotten in the last 10 years, and now we can't maintain it without more money. And yet we're getting tons of money in from grants and things, and there's a lot of.
And we've been able to do a lot of things.
Fixed incomes.
We have spent 15 years not asking for money by using those grant funds.
We're not here to endorse the levy.
But they're here to tell us about it, and I'm here to ask questions.
Well, that's fine, John.
Okay, so when I'm done, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right.
Again, Mr. Gentleman, I'm more than happy to have this conversation with you outside of the meeting.
Thank you.
If you'd like to meet with me.
I'm sorry, but I'm not.
I appreciate your concerns.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Any further comments?
A quick question I had is, do you have any plans for any bike trails in the, northeastern portion of the township? That's kind of either side of Alexis and out to Talmadge and coming this way.
So, because of the infrastructure already in place for that area, it has been really difficult to build anything else. And I was part of the CIC project that brought together the Park District and Stage Art and the engineer's office to do the Sylvania Bikeways plan, which you all passed several months ago, I believe, and will be initiated in May as part of Bike Month. And that will tie in the current trails, the current MARC trails, with already existing routes. So that means, neighborhood roads and things like that, but they'll be marked so that people know that there are safe routes to bike.
Thanks.
Yeah, so because of, already in place roads and things like that, we can't really build additional infrastructure, but we did our best to use what we had.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience on the Olander Park system? Erica, I thank you for your.
Thank you. You all have a wonderful day. I will leave our annual report and my business card out for anyone who'd like to grab one on the way out.
Let's move on to the zoning department. Darrell?
You're up.
Good evening. You've received the monthly report for March from the zoning department, so I won't go over all those stats. I just wanted to mention the one item, Scott, if you can go to the last page, please. The monument signs text amendment. That will be before the Lucas County Plan Commission on April 27th, next Wednesday, and then before our zoning commission on May 11th, and tentatively before the trustees on June 7th. So we are working our way forward on that. That's pretty much all I have, unless you have any questions on the monthly report.
Anything, John?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darrell. Appreciate it. Road Service Department? I gave it up.
Evening. I submitted the monthly report for March. If you had an opportunity to review it, I'll just go over some key points. If you look down at F there, Monroe Road Storm Sewer Extension and ditch enclosure, we did a ditch enclosure and curbed some flooding issues on Monroe Road. We seeked $12,400 of reimbursement through the Stormwater Utility District, and that was reimbursed to us, so we did receive that back. One item that I'm just going to have on here this month is that box in the yellow there. That's just to give you an opportunity to see what some of the other tasks that we do in the road department. That's the Ohio Utilities Protection Services locates. We started doing that in 2013. It was a requirement for us to go out and locate our own utilities, which we cover the storm sewer district areas within the township. So you can see there's 278 items there total. Those 278, 226 of them, we actually physically just got on the computer, had to review the locates and make a decision whether we were going to go out and physically locate them or just sign off as there was no conflict. So you see 41 of them we actually had to go out and physically locate, and one of them we missed, and 10 of them were incomplete. So just to give you an example of what we do with those, from now on I won't have the box on there, I'll just have some numbers that we can review.
Was this year to date or last?
That is for the month.
Sure.
We do that every month.
Oh, this is.
That's about an average 278 for the month. And those come from residents, from any construction workers, anybody digging. That's the 811 call before you dig number. So, we do have, I did apply for the systematic safety signage upgrade grant. That did total $14,200 in grant money that we should receive. Hopefully that will be approved this month. That's for improving the signage, street signs within the township. Primarily the stop, yield, and yellow signal signs. Did conduct some training, sent the foreman Steve Klessler to ODOT trench safety class down in Columbus. It prepares us for the construction season. We do some tire projects that require some of that information. In the service department, I'm happy to say all the ASC testing for all the mechanics are complete. They are current as of today, and you can see some of the miscellaneous work. On the back, page 2, some of the projects you probably know went out to bid. The OPWC project's out to bid right now, and some of those other projects you can review as well. They'll be coming up this month. If you could go to the next slide. If you recall last agenda meeting, you guys, the trustees the board approved a camera for purchase. One of the first items we did with this camera, I just wanted to show you and point out the usage of it, is this is a storm sewer line at Wild Pheasant and Monarch Meadows. In 1994, the Columbia Gas Company bored this line through there. You can see that's a gas line. We've been filling that hole that created since 1994 with cold mix. We went out with the camera. Very first thing we did is review that, and we identified that was the issue, and contacted Columbia Gas, and they are going to repair that at their cost and repair the road as well. So typically what we would have done is went out and cut a hole in the road, put a bunch of barrels up, and discovered it was a gas line, called them, wait for them to move it. By that time, we would have owned it, and we would have had to have repaired the road at our cost. So this is a safety issue as well. If we would have sent a storm sewer jet through there or something and broke that line, it could have created a gas explosion of some sort. So I just wanted to put that out, and thank you again for your approval on the camera.
Sounds like it paid for itself already.
Absolutely.
Any questions for Rob?
I do have one resolution on the agenda as well. This is to participate in agreement with the City of Sylvania. I've been working with Kevin Aller to arrange agreement with us so we can dump our sweeper grindings. They built a pad that meets EPA's regulations for drying the contaminants that are in the back of your storms, or been in the back of your sweeper or your Vector jets. And I'm going to ask for your permission or your approval on that, and the resolution would allow us to dump there. And it's a joint agreement. If the attachment's attached to there, you'd have an opportunity to review it. It's in the board meeting room. And that would allow a reduction of cost of the overall cost of our sweeper system and sweeping our roads. So it's a system that they put in place a few years back to meet the regulation as well. And it's something that would cost about $35,000 to $40,000 today to build at this location if we were to put a drying pad in.
Is the city charging us?
Yes, they will. We come to an agreement. We will pay for our portion of it. They will manage the facility, but it does alleviate some of the testing and the requirements that we do here. We currently dump it in dumpsters, which is not very operationally effective or efficient. And at some point, the location of those dumpsters where we have them may be pulled from us. We currently keep them at a location on Hanson property, and they allow us to do that. But at some point, I foresee them asking us to remove those dumpsters, and then we'd be looking at a place to put our sweeper grindings.
Has the prosecutor looked at the agreement yet, you know?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not till it's approved. There's a section on there for him to sign off on.
Yeah, I saw that, and I wondered, this is renewable every year?
This will be a continuous renewed unless we notify them.
Yeah, normally I'm used to them limiting, you know, a period of years.
I did a cost analysis on
Whatever the
it.
prosecutor says I'm comfortable with.
The city and the township actually sweep about the same mileage
I
of roads.
noticed that, both.
So roughly around 162 curb miles apiece. So our costs relatively should be the same, but they're going to back charge us for the cost of maintaining the dump, which is a fairly reasonable cost, and then the transportation once the materials dries out to the landfill. So their crews will handle it, and they'll just charge us the force account
I
rate.
like the arrangement. In fact, we should be doing more of this. It's a good deal for both of us. I just thought the prosecutor might put a 10-year limit or something on the agreement, but it's very good, Rob.
Okay.
I'll offer Resolution 16-052, agreement to enter in with the city for street sweeper debris.
Second?
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
I just want to thank Rob for the work on this. This is a win-win situation for us and the city of Sylvania. If we had to build that pad ourselves, once again, we don't really have big enough area to justify the cost of a pad in that, where we just do the township streets. The city has already got their pad, so, you know, why wouldn't us use it? And one of the problems was the Ohio EPA is tightening up on these rules, as he said, where before you could just dump it wherever you want, then they say, no, now you have to have it tested. They actually classify the stuff in the streets that we pick up as there's a term they use for that, where they now classify it as like a hazardous waste, even though it's been in the street.
Contaminated.
This is a regulated non-hazardous.
Regulated nutting. So this is a win-win. We'll be prepared for the future where if Ohio EPA starts tightening rules, we already have a facility that we can use. So I want to just thank Rob for getting
Very
that done.
good.
Is that site at their compost facility in Michigan, or is that here off of River Road?
It's right by their, right down the
It's a
road.
great location, center of
Sounds good.
the, right by the creek.
That's where you put all the dumps, ain't it?
Yeah, we're right where you want to go.
Fire department.
Good afternoon. I also want to thank Rob because where they put that cameras in my neighborhood, so, and we have had a lot of problems with water and stuff in our neighborhood, so thank you for the camera, and Rob, thanks for the work you guys are doing on there. Chief Kowalski's off today, so unfortunately you get me this evening. Page 2, I'll go kind of fast because I think you guys were able to view it. If you notice, year-to-date totals, we're already at 781 incidents, and responses were almost at 1,000 already for the department for the year. If we go to page 3, I know we've been discussing with Chief Bomey, and I know it's been brought up several times at meetings about the Narcan and the narcotics and all the things that are going on. We are working on, one of our officers has developed a program to hopefully give some more training to not only the police officers, but maybe some community training on what Narcan actually is and how it works and how you give it. So we're working on a program to kind of be out front with that. So, and as you know, on the incidents here, the way they're dispatched is how they're categorized. So if you actually look at ingestion poisonings, only shows 4. Myself, I know I was on more than 4 overdoses with heroin over this last month. So they can come in as ill people, as unconscious, cardiac arrest. It just depends on how that person tells the 911 operator. That's how the computer logs it. If we go to page 4, the mutual aid incidents, we had 9 mutual aid automatic aids. Mutual aids given, we had 6, and we had 36 transports by the medic unit. Also on the automatic aid, just so you're aware, I've been working with Assistant Chief Helminski and the people at Lucas County EMS that do our dispatching. We are working on a new thing because of how the construction is from Central to Airport Highway. There's no turnarounds anymore, so it's very hard for our people to make it in the northbound lane. We have to go all the way to Airport and turn around and come back. So we're working on a program where we will take southbound from Central to Airport. They'll handle northbound Airport to Central. So that's in the works. We're trying to make it a lot safer both for their guys, our guys, and the citizens. So it's in the works. I think it's going to be a great thing, because really what happens is if it's north of Bancroft, but it's in the northbound lane, we pass Springfield down somewhere around Angola, and it doesn't make sense to have their resources and our resources trying to chase each other to get back to the accident. So they can get on at Airport much faster, and we can get on at Central much faster, at least for now, until they go down the one lane on Central Avenue. Both ways. Public safety education, we had some 6 school drills. We installed 1 smoke alarm. We had a couple of safety tours that came into the station. Chief Fralick was fairly busy with plan reviews. He did spend 2 days down in Columbus on the Fire Code Academy Campus Fire Safety program that he attends, and he also was involved in the state law for school door locking devices. They had a huge conference down there about that too. Page 12 is our continuing education. This last month we went over geriatrics and pediatrics. A very famous doctor out of Florida, his name is Dr. Hantevi. He came up with a system for paramedics, first responders, nurses to actually remember and do the dosages for pediatrics. You can just imagine how many different, based on weights and based on age differences, and he came up with a really nice program, and our guys all attended that at Lucas County EMS. The guys also worked heavily on our SCBA. They did maintenance inspections, and they also worked in the SCBA trailer all month. If you look at page 13, our 6 new part-time firefighters finished the mini fire academy, and I'm happy to say that one of them is spending his first 24-hour shift on duty today. So all 6 of them are on the schedule, ready to go. 3 of them are paramedic firefighters, and 3 of them are EMT firefighters, and 2 of those 3 are enrolled in paramedic school also at this time. So that's looking very good for us. And at the end, there's page 14. We had the training and fire recall, and if you notice the funded overtime, we have been working real closely with Lords We're now doing their EMS standby for lacrosse. We're doing it for soccer also, and it seems to be working out really well for us. They seem to be really happy. I spoke with the gentleman today. He's very happy. Our guys are very professional, and they've done everything he's asked them to do. So, any questions for me?
Very good, Mike.
I'm sorry, one thing I did forget is, speaking about grants, we have 2 grants out there. One is for new radios and the other is for new SCBA's. We've made it through the first 3 cuts on the grants for FEMA, and they are giving money out starting in May. So we have our fingers crossed that we're going to make it through on those 2.
And would those communicate with all the surrounding
Yes, sir.
communities as well?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Do we currently, or?
Yes, we currently, actually, the radios we have now were bought off a county-wide regional grant that was written by Lucas County about 10 years ago. And unfortunately, the radios that we have now went obsolete 5 years ago, so we can't even get parts to fix them. So what happened is Jim Wolf, our guy that writes our normal fire grants, worked with other departments in the community, Toledo, Springfield. I think there's 7 of us went in and wrote a regional grant to try to replace the radios we have. And then the SCBA grant is just ours. We tried to do a regional one on that, but not everybody uses the same air packs. The radios are all the same, but air packs are kind of it's kind of like a car. If you like a Chevy and somebody might like a Dodge, so a little bit different on that, so.
Sounds good.
Great, Mike.
All right,
I
thanks.
noticed on your EMS, just go back and look, I don't think he gave us a year-to-date total.
Oh, okay.
You don't need to do it,
I'll ask Becky where that is. I didn't notice that today.
yeah.
I know the guys are busy. I know today they've had 3 incidents that had 2 patients at it today, which they were calling it 2 for Tuesday. I don't know where they get that from, but thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Chief?
Good evening. I'll start off before my monthly report, and I'll make it brief. I wanted to let you, the trustees, know that I just learned today, a decision was made yesterday. You know that it used to be the 24-hour challenge for SCAT out of Timberstone. I know you guys attended some of those. They decided to cancel it due to lack of participation of the kids. And we had 32 kids signed up, and the numbers have been going down over the last few years anyway. So I think that may be a thing of the past. So didn't want you showing up Saturday, April 30th, and having an empty stadium or whatever.
Seemed like it rained every time they held one, so I could see why the participation dwindled, but.
You're right, you're right. These kids had more dedication than I would have. I'll tell you like that.
Yes.
With the monthly report, moving to page 2, you'll see the different type of calls that came into our dispatch. I'm going to have to start getting that put on there, but those calls total 7,558 calls into our dispatch center. Page 3, our calls for service. Again, I won't repeat all these numbers and such. You'll see we're only 3 months through. Some of our numbers, some of our offenses are up, some of them are down. I look for those to kind of even out toward as we progress in the year. Page 4, our transport cost analysis with doing transports for the city. You'll see that due to doing the transports for the city, it has not cost us a nickel thus far. And if you look at those columns to the left, number of prisoners, that's Sylvania Police, the city. STP is obviously us in the Sheriff's Department. And you see we do very few transports for Sylvania City. And when we do, we always have prisoners that we're transporting for ourselves or for the county. So that's why it hasn't cost us anything yet. So that's been a real good arrangement for us. And we really work with the county very well. Sometimes they'll take ours if we're short-staffed for the day. Sometimes we'll take theirs if they're short-staffed. So we've had a really good working relationship with the county on that too. Page 5, again, I won't go over all the numbers. The bold print on the right are the big things. The cases assigned, the number cleared, number remaining active for the month, and then the total cases cleared and such. Page 6 of note, we participated, our community affairs section, Sergeant Whalen, Patrolman Snow, Patrolman Krychek, participated in the Business Expo March 19th at Table Shanter. And then as far as the training there too, the last two bullets under general, I will tell you that as of this past Monday, April 18th, we've got all our 8 hours, we had 11 hours of state mandated CPT training. It's increased over the last couple of years since Ferguson, Missouri, and some of those things. And the big block of the 8 hours, every one of our officers, as of April 18th, we participated in a webinar here at the Township Hall. And we've got everybody but our one new guy that's still on military service and is coming back in June, and we'll make arrangements for him. So that was a big thing. I was at a chief's meeting actually down at Bowling Green, District 2 meeting for the OACP, and there's a lot of departments that are really scrambling trying to get that training. And we were able to, Sergeant Whelan did a tremendous job in setting up the webinar and getting us compliant with the state. So that worked out well. Speed trailer, I expect we'll start getting complaints on that. We'll definitely utilize that. You can see we've utilized it just in one location on Whiteford Road there, which is kind of an unusual. We haven't really ever received complaints that I'm aware of too much until that one. You'll see the report. Again, there's nothing of great note there on page 7 for the K-9 unit. Page 8. The DEA task force, again, you can see some of the data there and the narrative. I think I did forward to you, well, actually in the monthly, okay, about we're going to start getting money again, okay, which is a good thing. Page 9, again, the location of our burglaries, robberies, thefts, that sort of thing. Commercial district, Monroe Street, Central Avenue. That's where it's happening and continues to happen, especially the big box stores and such. Page 10, traffic crashes, DUIs. You'll see a few of them along Monroe Street. Surprisingly, a few of them along Corey Road there, and then the great majority on Central Avenue, as is usually the case, and I think will always be the case. Page 11, again, the figures are small. We'll just start getting more money from the federal equity sharing account, but the figures there kind of speak for themselves. Page 12, the overtime report wasn't available through Right Stuff for last month's monthly report. So the top one is February of this year. Our overtime hours in the 4 different classifications. Employee classifications, and then in March, the same thing. And with that, if you have any questions or whatever, that's some of the training.
I know you've been doing it for quite a while, but the prisoner transport seems to be working well with the other communities. And I know all the trustees feel we should be looking at opportunities to work together and lower costs.
Okay, great. Yeah, we continue to work with them on other things. I mean, we've got the Explorer program. They help us cover Pace Setter with those 2 big soccer tournaments that are coming up. And that's been helpful, and, we'll continue to look for opportunities.
Good.
Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Zeiler.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a home rule resolution. We had the first reading in our last meeting. This is the second reading where we can now pass the resolution. It's 16504-036, requiring pawnbrokers and precious metal dealers to register and participate in secondhand property tracking program. We've already discussed this, so this would be the time that we can actually pass this resolution. And then we publish it in the Twitter Blade as required under home rule resolutions.
I'll move for resolution 16504-036.
Second.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. John?
Yes.
Have you any feedback, Chief, on that? Have you heard anything?
I have not.
I haven't seen what Mr. Morale rolled out.
The resolution? We can give you a copy of that, then. But we have not had any comments from the public on that. And the next one, yeah, I know. The next one, I'm going to bring Susan up to talk about it, extended offers of employment.
As you recall, several weeks ago, the board suggested that we add a position to the zoning department, a part-time zoning compliance officer. We have been interviewing for that, as well as Val Lutz will be retiring at the end of June. So between Daryl and I, we've interviewed 21 people, and then lowered it down to second interviews, and so we are in a position now to offer employment for both the zoning compliance officer, which is 16 hours a week, and the part-time zoning clerk for 24 hours a week. So I'm asking for authorization to extend those offers, of course contingent upon successful completion of their exams.
Both positions are part-time,
Yes,
and I think the board discussed adding a part-time zoning violation person or enforcement person. And you can tell from Daryl's reports, complaints are way up, so. But these are both part-time positions.
yes.
What pay rate are they both at, or?
The zoning compliance officer, I guess they're both at both at $17, with no benefits, of course.
I'll move resolution 16053 to authorize the assistant administrator, HR director to extend offers of employment in the zoning department. No second, we'll move on. Next item, John.
The last one, I have a resolution 16055, authorize administrator to enter into an agreement for legal services. Trustee Crandall, I'll let you address, you have actually met this Rhonda Carter and her credentials. This would authorize to hire her for jet agreements and annexation work.
Yes. I put a resume several weeks ago in both of your boxes. We would like to get her entered into a contract. We're not sure we're going to need her yet, but with the annexation issues, my guess is we'll have her ready to go when needed. And I'll move resolution 16055 to authorize the administrator in an agreement for legal services.
Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Last thing I'd like to mention before, go ahead, John.
Oh, go on.
Before you step down, you got your first administrator's report this past Friday, I think.
Right.
And so I'm doing reports of Friday before meetings, and so is the administrator. And I'd like to thank the department heads. It was a nice summary. We used to get them, 4 or 5, 6 pieces of paper. It was nice to have it summarized and be able to go through it. So, John, I thank you and the department.
And the departments did too.
For that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, next up is the fiscal. Mr. Simcoe.
Well, just briefly, we're at a quarter after 3 months, and if you look at the report, there's nothing really remarkable on it. We've gotten our first half property settlement. We're waiting for the TIF money, but if you look at expenditures, they're down some, but we're missing one payroll, so that's probably why they're down slightly. And that, there was probably a little more interesting thing. The tax collections for the first half of the year increased by approximately 2% over the last year, so I suppose that's helpful to us, And but other than that, nothing else to report.
What do they attribute like a 2% increase to, or where do, you know?
I think it's just increasing
Growth
property
and-
values, growth, and that, yeah.
Okay.
Well, the growth and some of the levies were actually collecting less than they used to because the people's property values went down. And now with values starting to increase.
Where they were 8 years ago.
Right, that they'll never pay more tax than they did, but it could be brought up to where they were a few years ago. And so that's, and plus growth of new houses, they now go onto the tax rolls and that.
And then we just had resolution 16-054, and it's an appropriation to purchase an EMS life support unit. It's a used one that we're, picking up, and I think there was information, I saw information that was passed out on that for people, so it seems like it's a good expenditure of money for $12,000,
We voted to buy it last week, and this is just moving the money?
Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
I'll offer resolution 16-054, appropriation from unencumbered balance.
Second?
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Chairman's report, do you have any questions on my report?
No, both yours and Mr. Zeitler's were very informative. Thank you.
Okay. All right, hearing of the public, non-agenda items, I don't think we have anybody signed up.
Oh, Mr. Creaky there, he's raising his hand.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
I say brief if I can.
No, I'm not going to allow questions.
We're going to put you in a time.
Well, I guess, Tom Kriege, 9555 Sylvania Avenue. Looking through the agenda this week, I saw obviously Olander Park System, and just wanted to make a few statements, being familiar with the property, the flooding issues out there, other grievances. They hired a contractor last fall to rip out the drainage tile. They want to introduce wetlands and other things, which I thought was kind of absurd with mosquitoes and other things right next to two schools. There's one thought. So I don't think people think of these things when they approve them and do them, not to mention the cost that was attached to that. I don't have a specific number, I heard rumors, but I'm sure Zeitler could help me out with that. I believe the contractor was Cody Excavating out of Sandusky area. He was in no real big hurry to do the work either. I think his equipment sat there for like 3 months. So he must have been making good money if he could afford to leave a semi, a lowboy, a bulldozer, and an excavator sit there for 3 months, not on another job.
Maybe he sold some land to the park.
Maybe. These are just observations, thinking out loud. And I find it funny that now we get to vote as taxpayers to help support this, but we don't get to vote whether we approve to buy it or not. It seems a little bit of the buggy before the horse. I think, when there's 3 board or a 5 board making these decisions to buy land and more land, that should be up to the voters, and then decide, okay, do we want to give them another millage to support? 100% of the people are paying for maybe what 5% of the people use when it comes to parks. To me, it's not the same as fire, police, and schools that almost everybody is utilizing. I would much rather see our money go there, and I think I'm not the only one in the community that feels that way. So I just caution, talk to other trustees from other areas, look at the scenario Spencer Township's in with Kitty Todd. They can't get anything past that. No infrastructure will go through some of these conservation areas. You could also talk to trustees from Richfield Township in regards to Secor Park. Anything west of there floods because Secor Park will not clean the ditches through there. So as she talks about stormwater and alleviating issues, if they don't manage it and maintain it, they can actually make our issues worse. So those are just some thoughts. I know, John has said, hey, we're not supporting this one or the other, but one of the trustees who's not here is on the campaign committee in supporting it. So technically, you kind of are supporting it. So those are just my observations, and I just, as always, encourage common sense, government, and approach, and taxation. And I think all of these guys here are doing that. I'm not so sure about some of the guys on the other side of the desk, so thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate your comments. I think, I don't think there's anyone else that signed up to speak, so I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. 6:05?
6:05, call the roll, Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good.